Have you ever noticed how some human pains are easy to see and others seem invisible? A person with a broken arm receives care, attention, maybe even compassion. But a person with depression often hears phrases like react, this is lack of will, everyone has problems, or you just need to think positive. And that is where one of the great silent tragedies of the human mind begins. Depression does not usually arrive screaming. It often arrives quietly. It goes on erasing energy, reducing pleasure, making the world heavier, until simple tasks begin to seem like mountains. Getting out of bed, answering a message, taking a shower, working, studying, talking, smiling, everything can become an enormous effort. And the most curious thing is that, on the outside, many depressed people continue to seem normal. They work, talk, post, laugh in public, fulfill obligations, while inside they feel as if they were disappearing little by little. Depression is one of the most misunderstood conditions of the modern world. Many people still confuse depression with sadness, weakness, laziness, or drama. But it is much more complex than that. It is not simply being sad. Sadness generally has a clear reason, comes in waves, improves with welcoming, rest, or time. Depression can remain even when the person apparently has no reason to be unwell. It can arise in someone who has a job, family, money, friends, physical health, and a life that, seen from the outside, seems good. And it is exactly this that confuses so many people. How can someone be sinking inside if, on the outside, they seem to have everything? Today, you will learn 10 facts about depression that help to understand why it is so deep, so silent, and so dangerous when ignored. Not to romanticize suffering, nor to turn pain into a spectacle, but to see better what many people live without being able to explain. Because perhaps the most frightening part of depression is not only sadness. Perhaps it is the way it changes the way the person sees themselves, the world, and their own future. The first fact is that depression is not just sadness. This is one of the most common confusions. Everyone gets sad at some point. Sadness is part of life. You lose something, get disappointed, receive bad news, go through a difficult phase, and sadness appears as a natural emotional response. But depression usually goes beyond that. It can affect the body, thought, behavior, sleep, appetite, memory, concentration, and even the feeling of identity. The person does not only think, I am sad. Many times they think, I am no longer me. Things that once gave pleasure start to provoke almost nothing. Music loses strength. Conversations seem tiring. Food loses grace. Plans seem useless. Even good moments can seem distant, as if they were happening behind glass. This happens because depression can alter the ability to feel reward. It is not simply that the person does not want to have fun. Sometimes they try. They go out with friends, watch a movie, go to a party, buy something, try to distract themselves, but nothing seems to cross that heavy layer inside. It is as if the brain lost sensitivity to what used to light something up. And when the person realizes that not even the good things work anymore, an even crueler feeling arises. There is something wrong with me. Depression does not only take away joy, it can take away the confidence that joy is still possible. The second fact is that depression can be invisible. There is a popular idea that a depressed person will always look downcast, crying, isolated, with an unkempt appearance. Sometimes it is like that, but many times it is not. There are people with depression who smile, make jokes, deliver results, answer messages, take care of others, and seem strong. Some become specialists in hiding their own suffering. They learn to say everything is fine with such convincing naturalness that nobody notices the weight behind the phrase. And this makes everything more dangerous, because whoever seems to function on the outside may be breaking on the inside. Many people hide depression out of shame. Others hide it out of fear of being seen as weak. Some hide it because they have already tried to speak and were not taken seriously. And others do not even know exactly how to explain what they feel. How to tell someone that you are tired of existing without necessarily wanting to die. How to explain that answering "good morning" seems to require absurd energy. How to admit that you cannot feel joy in moments that should be happy. For this reason, depression often grows in silence. Not because the person wants to deceive others, but because they do not find a safe space to reveal their own pain. The third fact is that depression can distort thoughts. This is perhaps one of the most important points. Depression does not affect only mood. It can alter the way the mind interprets reality. The person begins to believe that they are a burden, that they have no value, that nothing will improve, that every mistake proves their incapacity, that every silence means rejection, that every difficulty confirms that they have failed. And the most dangerous thing is that these thoughts do not seem like thoughts. They seem like truths. Imagine wearing dark glasses for so long that you forget you are wearing glasses. The world seems naturally grayer, colder, more without a way out. Depression can work like this. It places a filter over reality. The brain begins to select evidence against the person themselves. If someone takes time to answer, they think, nobody cares. If they make a small mistake, they think, I ruin everything. If they receive a compliment, they distrust it. If they receive criticism, they absorb it as absolute confirmation. The depressed mind often is not only suffering, it is building a narrative in which the person always loses. And this explains why motivational phrases do not always help. Saying, think positive, to someone depressed can sound like asking someone to see the sun while they are trapped inside a room without windows. It is not that the person refuses to see the good side. Many times, the good side seems emotionally inaccessible. They even understand rationally that it can improve, but they do not feel that is truth. There is an enormous difference between knowing something with the head and being able to feel that something inside. The fourth fact is that depression also lives in the body. Many people think that depression is only mental, but the body frequently feels the impact. The person can feel constant tiredness, pains without a clear explanation, tension, changes in sleep, changes in appetite, slowness, restlessness, heaviness in the chest, lack of energy, and difficulty performing simple tasks. In some cases, sleeping does not rest. The person wakes up tired, spends the day tired, and ends the night exhausted, even without having made great efforts. It is as if the internal battery never charged completely. This is important because many people blame themselves for not being able to act. They think, I am lazy, I am weak, I have no discipline. But, in many cases, the problem is not character. It is compromised mental and physical energy. Depression can transform common actions into enormous challenges. Taking a shower can seem like a heavy task. Making the bed can seem useless. Cooking can seem impossible. Working can seem like surviving every minute. And when the person cannot do the basics, they blame themselves even more. Guilt increases suffering, suffering reduces energy, and the lack of energy generates more guilt. Thus, a cycle difficult to break is born. The fifth fact is that depression can steal the future. One of the cruelest things about this condition is that it does not hurt only the present. It can erase the feeling of possibility. When a person is well, even facing problems, they can imagine some way out. They can think, this is difficult, but it will pass. I can try another way. There are still paths. In depression, this ability can decrease a lot. The future seems closed. The mind begins to repeat, it will always be like this. And when someone believes that the pain will never pass, the pain becomes much heavier. This is a central point to understand why depression needs to be taken seriously. The person is not only sad about what happened, they may be without hope about what will still happen. And the lack of hope is one of the most dangerous sensations of the human experience. Because the human being can endure many things when they believe there is a chance of improvement. But when the mind begins to say that nothing changes, that nothing is useful, that nobody understands, that there is no way out, suffering gains a frightening depth. For this reason, many times, helping someone with depression does not mean convincing the person that life is wonderful. It means, before everything, helping this person get through the day without sinking even more. Sometimes, hope does not begin as a great light. It begins as a small crack, a shower taken, a message answered, an appointment scheduled, a short walk, an honest conversation, a request for help. Small acts may seem little to someone who sees from the outside, but for someone who is in depression, they can be signs of resistance. The sixth fact is that depression can leave the person irritated, not only sad. This detail is little talked about. When we think of depression, we imagine crying, silence, discouragement. But in many people, depression appears as irritation, impatience, emotional explosions, aggressive isolation, or a constant feeling of being at the limit. The person does not seem sad. They seem hard, cold, bad-tempered, distant. And this can push away exactly the people who could help. Irritation can arise because the mind is already overloaded. When someone is fighting internally to do the basics, any small demand can seem like an invasion. A simple question like, "Why did you not answer?" can sound like an accusation. An invitation can seem like pressure. Advice can seem like criticism. And then the person reacts badly, regrets it, feels guilt, isolates themselves more, and reinforces the idea that they ruin everything. One more cycle forms. This fact is important because some depressed people do not receive welcoming. They receive judgment. They are called difficult, rude, ungrateful, negative. Of course, depression does not justify hurting others, but understanding what may be behind certain behaviors changes the way of dealing with them. Sometimes, behind irritation, there is exhaustion. Behind distancing, there is shame. Behind silence, there is fear of bothering. And behind a dry response, there may be a person trying not to fall apart. The seventh fact is that depression can create a mask of functionality. This is one of the most deceptive forms. Some depressed people continue producing. They work, study, take care of the house, pay bills, deliver tasks, seem responsible, except that they do everything in automatic mode. Inside, there is no vitality, only obligation. They do not live the day, they get through the day. And when they arrive home, they collapse. This type of depression can go unnoticed for a long time because society usually measures mental health by productivity. If the person is working, then they must be well. If they are smiling in a photo, then they must be well. If they are leaving the house, then they must be well. But functioning is not the same as being well. A machine can continue functioning with broken parts for some time. This does not mean that it does not need repair. It only means that it has not stopped completely yet. The problem is that highly functional people often take longer to ask for help. They think, "I am not that bad because I can still work." But perhaps they are paying a very high price to maintain this appearance. Perhaps each task is costing twice as much energy. Perhaps each social interaction is demanding a performance. Perhaps each smile is an attempt to hide an emptiness. And when nobody notices, the person may feel that their pain is not real enough to deserve care. The eighth fact is that depression does not have a single cause. This is another common mistake, trying to find a simple explanation. It was because of the breakup. It was because of work. It was lack of faith. It was lack of occupation. It was genetics. It was trauma. In reality, depression usually involves a combination of factors. It may have a relationship with biology, family history, prolonged stress, losses, traumas, isolation, physical illnesses, substance use, hormonal changes, environment, relationships, financial pressure, lack of sleep, and many other elements. This means that two people can develop depression through very different paths. One may sink after a loss. Another may become ill slowly after years of stress. Another may have an apparently stable life and still feel depression arrive. Another may carry old wounds that were never worked through. And another may enter depression without being able to point to a great specific event. This does not make the pain less legitimate. Not every storm begins with visible thunder. Understanding that depression has multiple causes helps to fight guilt. The person does not simply choose to become depressed. Nobody looks at their own life and decides, "I want to lose energy, pleasure, self-esteem, sleep, focus, and will to live." Depression is not a moral choice. But seeking help, when possible, can be a step of care. And care does not mean weakness. It means recognizing that some battles should not be fought alone. The ninth fact is that small attitudes can help, but they do not replace treatment when it is necessary. This point needs to be said with balance. Better sleep, nutrition, physical activity, routine, sunlight, social contact, and stress reduction can help many people. But saying this in a simplistic way can become cruelty. Because someone with depression can hear, "Do exercise," as if it were an accusation. You are like this because you do not make an effort. And it is not that. The problem is not suggesting healthy habits. The problem is treating habits as a magic cure. For some people, walking a little can help. For others, just getting out of bed is already an immense victory. For some, talking with friends relieves. For others, socializing seems impossible at that moment. For some, Organizing the routine brings stability. For others, the mind is so heavy that any task list becomes one more source of guilt. For this reason, care needs to be realistic. Depression may need professional follow-up, psychotherapy, medical evaluation, and, in some cases, medication. And this should not be seen as shame. Nobody should feel shame for treating a condition that affects the mind, just as they should not feel shame for treating high blood pressure, diabetes, or an infection. The brain is also part of the body. Mental health is also health, and asking for help diminishes nobody. Many times, it is exactly the opposite. Asking for help is the first gesture of courage after a long time trying to endure everything alone. The 10th fact is that the way we react to the pain of others can change everything. Perhaps you will never know how much a phrase can weigh. When someone is depressed, hearing, "This is nonsense," can close a door. Hearing, "There are people worse off," can increase guilt. Hearing, "You need to react," can make the person feel even more incapable. But a welcoming response can open space. Something simple like, "I do not know exactly what you are feeling, but I am here. You do not need to explain everything now. Do you want me to stay with you for a while? Or, shall we look for help together?" can have an enormous impact. Sometimes, helping is not giving a brilliant solution. It is remaining present without judgment. It is listening without turning the conversation into a lecture. It is not competing suffering. It is not minimizing. It is not demanding that the person improve fast so that you feel comfortable. It is understanding that depression is not resolved with scolding. Emotional pain does not disappear because someone ordered it to disappear. And there is an important detail. Welcoming does not mean carrying the person alone. Whoever helps also needs to have limits. In serious situations, especially when there is risk of self-harm or thoughts of death, it is fundamental to seek urgent help, activate trusted family members, or seek specialized professional support. In the end, depression is perhaps one of the clearest proofs that not every human battle is visible. Sometimes, the person who seems distant has not stopped loving. They are without strength. The person who seems lazy may be exhausted inside. The person who seems cold may be trying not to collapse. The person who seems normal may be using all their energy only to seem normal. And perhaps the most important question is not, why does this person not react? Perhaps it is, what are they carrying that I still have not been able to see? Depression forces us to face an uncomfortable truth. The mind can become a heavy place even for someone who, seen from the outside, seems to have reasons to be well. And that is why talking about this topic matters. Because when we understand better, we judge less. When we judge less, we listen more. And when we listen more, perhaps someone finds courage to ask for help before reaching the limit. If this video made you see depression in a different way, leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this with more care. And now tell me in the comments, which of these 10 facts about depression do you think people ignore most in everyday life? Comment your answer, because perhaps your view helps another person feel less alone.